And so it begins. Donald J. Trump and his vice president, Mike R. Pence, have finally been sworn into office by the selection of the Electoral College in Washington, D.C. January 20th, 2017, for all of you that have been sleeping, for those of you that did your best to try to ignore all the ongoings and the theatrics and all the ceremonial type attributes that were totally taking over the airwaves, whether that was radio, whether that was TV, whether that was most mainstream internet social platforms, even on Twitter. Donald J. Trump and his Vice President Mike R. Pence have been sworn into office. And so it begins. My name is Pate, here on the Top Cats Rebel Connection. What I wanted to do was make sure that you are well aware of the information that has been kind of squashed, that has been kind of put on the back burner, that has been, moved out of the mainstream media publications since they have come to a head. The ongoing situation with the U.S. military forces that arrived in Bremerhaven, that's in Germany, by the way. That's in northwest Germany. Bremerhaven, that's where the U.S. troops began to arrive on German soil. Extra U.S. troops began to arrive on German soil as to make their way across the wonderful land of Germany and into the wonderful land of Poland. This has been ongoing since January 6th through the 9th, depending on which news service you look at as far as the information that they're providing. A lot of news services didn't catch up with the story or didn't find it relevant enough to publicize until a little bit later. But when you look into this, you'll find that the troops from the U.S. and NATO troops started to move into the area up in Bremerhaven, Germany on January 6th. I'm here providing a bit of a spread from the T.R.C. News Deli. Something piping hot for you. This article that I'm going to cover has been written by me and has been compiled from many different mainstream websites, many other places that are actually alternative news, but I cross-checked and rechecked and overchecked to make sure things actually correspond. But as you know, unless we get the mainstream media's input from their reporters and camera people and radio people all out in the field around the world internationally, most of us wouldn't even know what's going on about 3 miles from our house. So unfortunately, I have to give it to you as I have filtered from the mainstream media. U.S. military troops now in Europe as a part of NATO. NATO is an acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. As of January 6th through the 9th, although you'll find most articles reporting from like the 11th and 12th of January 2017 on, as of January 6th through the 9th, as aforementioned, this is when the U.S. troops began to land on German soil. Extra troops, because if you are aware of the Cold War situation involving the United States and the troops in Germany, you know that there in Germany, in Wiesbaden, so to speak, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the W is pronounced with the V, in Wiesbaden and down in Kaiserslautern, that's where the U.S. troops still have their bases there. So these extra troops are additional troops, in fact. And the U.S. troops are being deployed in Poland under the operation called Operation Atlantic Resolve. The troops will be followed by 87 tanks, 144 Bradley fighting vehicles, and 2,500 vehicles, which are being transported as well across the land of Germany to Poland. This is the biggest U.S. military deployment in Europe since the end of the Cold War, which, by the way, began in 1945 and it ended in 1989, 1990. Former U.S. President Obama administered this U.S. military effort to deter perceived growing Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. But the Kremlin in Russia, they are not taking this at all by being content or unaffected by the U.S. military's actions. President Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, spelled Peskov, said in his January interview with the mainstream media, early January, that these actions by the U.S. military threatens our interest and security. Residents and officials in Poland welcomed U.S. and NATO armored brigades in Eastern Europe by their attendance numbers, smiling and waving small American flags. The arrival of U.S. and NATO armored brigades in the initiation of what will be a continuous rational presence of military might for some years to come, well, unless there is a change in interest for newly sworn in U.S. President Donald J. Trump and all coalition partners that are involved in NATO, well, this will be something that we will see perpetuated into the future. Furthermore, the U.S. government, when helmed by former President Barack Obama, enacted and set forth this swelling operation to calm the nerves of NATO's newer members after Moscow, Russia, annexed Crimea, Ukraine in 2014, and that destabilized that country's eastern flank. Now, Polish Army Major General, I'm going to do my best to pronounce his name, but the name is Polish, so bear with me. Major General Jarosław Majka, he said, well, with the soldiers that are training with the U.S. brigades, 3,500 troops, the general said he is thrilled that they are here. And also, he added that it's important to be together and build our common relationship and to prove more security and to provide more sustainability, not only for Europe, he concludes, but also for the world. Whether or not President Donald Trump, who is highly critical, by the way, of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, will withdraw the brigade after taking office is still questionable. And that's according to Michael Mazar, last name spelled Mazarr. He's the associate director of the RAND REO Center's Strategy Doctrine and Resource Program. Michael Mazar, associate director of the RAND REO Center's Strategy Doctrine and Resource Program in Germany, which is home to the U.S. Army, as I mentioned earlier. Germany, along with that, is a European headquarters for a new populist party with growing support from the German voters. And these German voters, according to the leaders of this populist party, say they want U.S. troops out of Poland. The co-chair of the Alternative for Germany party, Frauke Petri, I'll have to spell her name just in case you want to do some research. Her first name is spelled Frauke, last name spelled Petry. She argued that the antagonizing of Mr. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, she argued that Vladimir Putin and Russians, their situation involving all that's gone on over there between Russia and Americans, this hasn't cut down on the violence in the Ukraine or in Syria. And Syria is the situation that got, for the most part, and most recently, I would say, U.S. officials and Russian officials in a bind, in opposite directions as far as different interests, of course. Frauke Petrie says, I'm hopeful that Trump and Putin are going to end the situation. Polish foreign minister, here's another one of these names. Witold Waszewski. These names will be in the description box along with the links, by the way. On the other hand, has said he has hopes and he supposes that the efforts to reconcile with Russia, that doesn't happen at the expense of Poland. Because as you know, Poland is like one country away from Russia. But Russia is so big and powerful that its reach is much further than a country. So with the U.S. soldiers and NATO forces on the border, well, they're actually on the border of Russia. Conclusively, the U.S. military officials say that the Fort Carson, Colorado, 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team, the 4th Infantry Division, has begun moving into Poland as part of the most serious U.S. military buildup in Europe since the end of the Cold War. Currently also, U.S. soldiers and NATO members, which are 28 members in totality, including the USA, are fanning out across the Baltic states, Romania, Belgium, the Netherlands, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Poland to train with local troops in those countries. So, I'm going to let all that sink in and let that marinate for a minute. Coming up after this sonic display of people who are actually in harmony, hint, hint, I will prepare the short intelligence report I have for you about NATO, which is the Intergovernmental Military Alliance based on the North Atlantic Treaty signed into force on April 4th, 1949. This is Pate, Concrete Jungle Reporter and 411 content creator. To all those who stop by to check out our videos on YouTube at Top Cats Pride, I want you to know that we are making some video upload changes. We will be uploading videos 2 times per month, and all other uploads will be T.R.C. shows, Top Cats Rebel Connection shows. This adjustment, starting the 3rd week of January 2017, is necessary as to provide you with up to 50% more content. Our videos take about 50% more time to create, edit, and upload. So with this new, more efficient plan to provide you with content, it will remove the many hours necessary just to publish one broadcast, which is usually at least between 24 to 30 hours, but oftentimes more time than that time that I just mentioned for the time. Be sure to subscribe and or check back with us often at Spreaker.com/TOPKATSAIRBORN. That's Spreaker, SPREAKER.com/TopCatsAirborne for all shows. Thanks for hunting for knowledge and truth with the Top Cats Pride and the Top Cats Rebel Connection. Yes, here during the final fourth week of January 2017, just a few days after the presidential inauguration in Washington, D.C. for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, we have the ongoing situation that transpired and developed before the now former president, Barack Obama, left office. The administration of this current ongoing swelling dilemma over and about Eastern Europe. Even though Central Europe is involved, Barack Obama has put the events into rotation. And right now, with him out of office and President Trump in office, I also wonder, is the president going to rescind this movement by U.S. forces? Again, it's not just U.S. soldiers passing through Germany and setting themselves up on the Polish border. It's other NATO troops as well. NATO, by the way, is an acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. There's 28 members in NATO. And NATO was founded in Washington, D.C. on April 4th, 1949. However, NATO is headquartered in Brussels, Belgium. The official language for NATO is English and French. And as far as reports go for the expenses for NATO, I have a quote here from 2015 at $867 million. It was actually 866 point, etc., but I just rounded up to $867 million. NATO is also called the North Atlantic Alliance. Now, NATO is very influential because in Europe, when you study the membership of NATO, you'll find that most European countries are in NATO, are in alliance, that do have a coalition force, who are constituents. And by the way, the treaty that was signed in 1949 stipulates that when one NATO country is having a problem, whether that's defensively or a interest offensively, the rest of NATO is also in alignment with that. I find that very, very interesting because actually when U.S. forces are in Poland on the border there, it's not really just U.S. forces. It's a whole alliance that is there. This has been decided upon at the headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. The organization constitutes a system of collective defense, whereby its member states agree to mutual defense in response to an attack by any external party. Some other NATO members involved in military participations beside the USA is Britain, France, and Denmark. In the information description area will be hot links for you to check out, for you to delve into, for you to use at your convenience for further clarity and research For the Top Cats Pride and the Top Cats Rebel Connection, I'm Q Pate with something piping hot from the T.R.C. News Deli. Subscriptions are welcomed. Thank you for stopping by.